Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something a bit different, a feedback session from a really tough professional management accounting exam prep course.
Yeah, and what's striking isn't just the technical stuff, it's the raw feedback on what actually leads to success or failure.
Exactly. We're not here just for the formulas. The big insight seems to be that passing these high-level exams often comes down to things like discipline, managing your time, and, perhaps surprisingly, how well you understand English.
That's the core of it.
So our mission today is to unpack that. We want to connect this, quite abstract advice about attitude to concrete strategies you can actually use and look at how complex ideas get hidden in seemingly simple language.
Right. The lecturer running the session was pretty clear, apparently. Passing rests on, well, three key things, not just formulas.
Okay, what are they?
High-level discipline, first. Then high-level intelligence, which here means.
Hi, so welcome to the second session in our discussion of the ICAG Strategic Case Study November 2025 pre-scene. In case you missed the previous session, certainly check it out and you can watch it and make sure you have an understanding of the various things as you go into the exam hall. We emphasized in the first discussion that when it comes to the case study, it is not about your analysis of the pre-scene. It is great to do analysis of the pre-scene. It is great to try to figure out things and all of those things. It's great. But the examiner is not interested in your ability to analyze the pre-scene. The examiner is interested in your ability to be able to know what is in the syllabus and write out your answers in the manner that you're expected to write. And so the goal in my presentation, in my discussion, is to help you to understand what is in the syllabus. Then we use the pre-scene as, a background to contextualize some of the things, making sure that we are actually walking through the entire syllabus and putting ourselves in the position to go into the exam or write the exam with confidence, and most importantly, pass the examination. In the discussion today, I'm going to first start with the examination strategy, what you are supposed to look out for, expect, and the mental attitude that you are required to go through in the exam hall when it comes to strategic case study. So I want to do that first. Then in the second part of my presentation, we are going to be going and continue with a discussion as we walk through the syllabus using our question EWL. So let me bring up my screen quickly, and then let's get excited into the discussion here. So, exam strategy for strategic case study. What does it take to pass the strategic case study examination? What are you supposed to do? How do you navigate yourself? And what I'm doing here is what you are supposed to do in the exam hall. In the exam hall. Because remember, your exam is going to be 3 hours top. Yeah, in some examination that you may get 3.5 hours. But what are you supposed to do? That is what I want to walk us through quickly. Then we can get excited into the discussion as we continue with the analysis. The first thing is you are required to prepare an answer plan. That's the first thing. You need to prepare an answer plan. What do I mean by an answer plan? When you get to the exam hall, as you start reading the questions, you may want to go start with something. No. So you want to take about 30 to 35 minutes to prepare the answer plan. Now, what is this answer plan about? Very simple. So you know that you are going to be given that 15 minutes reading time. And the 15 minutes reading time is for you to quickly go through the additional information. So you just use that time to go through the additional information. Because one thing you must understand is that if you are not careful, you are likely to reach a conclusion using the pre-scene, but there will be the additional information that actually changes the game. So you may have identified something as a challenge, something as a weakness, something as a difficulty with the company, but when you get to the exam hall with the additional information, everything changes. So before you get goosebumps, you want to, that 15 minutes reading time, you want to spend that time to read the additional information. It depends on the structure of the exam and the objective of the examiner. What is going to happen is that could be an additional 2 pages of additional information, or sometimes just 1 page of additional information. But you want to read that additional information because that then will bring you home to the conclusion and contextualization of everything that has been spoken about and has been discussed at the end of the day. So that's the first thing you must understand, the additional information. Then they will ask you to start work. That is what I'm saying, that when the examiner says start work, you don't just jump and then you start work. So you're going to prepare answer booklet, or your answer plan, sorry. So when you open your answer booklet, the first page, when they say start work, don't start work. You prepare your answer plan. So on the first page, you just write the answer plan. Why? Because now that you've read the additional information, you can now go into the questions. That's the idea. So you read through all the questions. The reason why the answer plan is important is because you are fresh in the exam hall. The ideas are coming in. You understand the various issues. So when questions come, you can write the answers down. So you prepare the answer plan. Okay, so maybe question 1A is about something. Write the points down. So maybe it's a model, it's a framework. Write a point down and how they relate in a summary form, not a comprehensive form. Okay, question 1B, you remember the answers, write them down. Okay, question 5C, it's a governance question, and you remember the issues about governance that the examiner is asking about. All right, write it down. So you're writing the key points here in your answer plan. It depends on the way you want to structure, but your first page and maybe your second page in the answer booklet will all be your answer plan. Why is this important? This is important for 2 reasons. If you take the time to plan your answers out like this, then when you begin to write, you just flow. It's not now that in the middle, you are now going to try to remember a point, a model, a framework, a concept. So you've taken time in the beginning of the exam like that, where your brain is fresh, a lot of thoughts are coming in, and you want to write those down as per the questions that you are going to be having. That is the first thing you must understand, preparing the answer plan. Preparing the answer plan. So your ideas will be fresh during this time. Writing them down prevents forgetting key points during the pressure of writing. So that is the first thing. The second benefit is that when you write the points down, now at the end of the day, you're supposed to cross them out, okay, because it's your answer plan, so you just cross them out or cross it out. The deal here is that even if you are not able to answer all the questions, because it is in your answer booklet and you're going to present this for marking, the examiner will look at it. So if there is maybe a question that you didn't take time to comprehensively answer, but you wrote the key point in your answer booklet, it could be looked at and you will get some marks for it. However, if you had written those points on your on your question paper, you will take your question paper home. So the answers that you've written on your question paper that you couldn't get time to transfer into the answer booklet, you took it home. Nobody will mark that. So these are the 2 core benefits for preparing the answer plan. 1, it is the earlier period of your examination. Ideas are fresh, thought processes are fresh, so boom, you put it there and then you write it out. Number 2, the flex that even if you're not able to finish, the examiner is going to be coming back to it. It's in your answer booklet. That's what you're going to present in. So definitely you may get some marks for the points that you have written in your answer booklet. That is the first thing you must understand when it comes to the answer booklet, the answer plan. And so the answer plan then acts as your map to follow during writing. It acts as your map to follow during writing. And as I said, you're going to use just bullet points and keywords for each part of the questions. It's not a comprehensive answer you are writing. You're just writing out the key issues that you need to be mindful of. That is what you must understand when it comes to the first part of the discussion, writing the answer plan. But not only that, after you write the answer plan, then you now come to looking at the way you're going to flow out at the end of the day. So once you read the question, the additional information as mentioned, now you're going to read the questions as well, right? Then you start answering. The deal is this. You must write or start answering the ones you can answer best first. This is very important. You start with what you can answer best first and make sure you understand the context of the question before writing out the answer. Make sure you understand the context of the question before you start writing out your answer. And that is very important in that particular case. Now, another thing that you must understand is this. When they say get ready to stop work, allow some time for review. Listen, this is a written paper. This is English language. Many a times in your brain, you think you are writing something, but in reality, what is in front of you is not what you thought it is. And because of that, I don't care how smart you think you are, how brilliant you think you are. Best practice suggests that, especially when you get here, get ready to stop work, drop your pen, and allow some time to review the thing you've done. I know there are some people who are going to say, oh, Nhyira, you don't know. It is this time that some appoi is coming. Yeah, you may be saying that, oh, this is the time the appoi is coming, but if all this while you've been writing a lot of garbage, then you're going to be in trouble, because English, just not bringing is or an or the, can change the context. Wrong spelling. So the review you are doing is to try to check for grammar and spelling mistakes. Yes, you can't catch yourself up, but if you take time to do the review, you will know it. I've had our students write questions, and some of you have experienced this. Case study, they present the answers. And then when we are reviewing the script, they were surprised at the presentation that they did. Their own script, they were surprised. Because the grammar issues, the spelling issues, the overall presentation, bogus. So I always ask my student, I'm like, hey, didn't you read the script before sending it over? Oh, Nhyira, I was behind time and I didn't want to, miss the deadline. And I want you to review the script. So that is why I wrote it and sent it. Then even in ratio analysis, financial reporting, corporate reporting, the same idea. So you want to check for grammar and mistakes. You want to check for incomplete answers. Because probably you are writing an answer, you are answering a question, you remember only 2 points. But you said you will come back to it because the other points were not coming. But then when you review and you come back to that question again, now maybe the answer could come. So you want to review for incomplete answers. Then 3, you want to review for unexplained points. Because a lot of the things that we are going to be doing in strategic case study will be explanation. In other words, you are explaining what the examiner is asking you to do. So maybe you've stated the points down and you want to come back later and come and explain. So during that review time, you want to come and explain so that you can put yourself in the position to possibly get as many marks as possible there. And then the last thing is that a good English presentation is crucial for conveying your ideas. This is very important. So as you are going into the exam hall, yes, do your analysis, kankpe. Yes, understand the things. But these are the things that will happen in the exam hall that you want to look at. So allow time for review. I know 99.9% of you, you're not going to do this. And if you are not careful, that will be the same reason why you will fail the exam. Because, sometimes people take things for granted, and the very thing they take for granted actually causes their downfall. So please, you don't want to do things thinking you are doing something, but doing something else. And that is where you see people come out from the exam hall and they said, but I answered all the questions. I answered all the questions. Results has come and they got 20. Then they are like, oh, I answered all the questions. I answered all the questions. No, you answered all the questions. Did you write the answer you like, or you wrote the answer as per the requirements of the question? You answered all the questions. Grammatically, spelling. Did you explain everything the way you're supposed to explain it? So don't put yourself in the position where you're going to blame somebody for your incompetence and inability to rationally make decisions that will make you successful. Then my final recommendation will be, make sure you comprehend the context of the question. This is very important. There is a high probability that you may not understand the context of the question, and you will think the examiner is asking about A, when in reality the examiner is asking about B. So to prevent digression, take time to understand the context of the question. That's very important. Number 2, you link the question to relevant areas or models. Like I was telling you in the session 1 discussion, if the examiner asks you to analyze the strategic position of the entity, or if you want the strategic capacity of the entity, and that's a 10 marks question, how do you answer that question? I told you about that in the first session. But how do you answer that question? You must know how to answer that question. Answering that question, as we mentioned, you got to leverage on SWOT, Potter's 5 forces. You got to leverage the pistol framework and then the SWOT analysis. But that doesn't mean you will use these 3 models to answer one question. Because to answer that question, you can just use the SWOT analysis. Why? Because SWOT analysis brings in the external environmental issues and then the internal issues as well. The external issues will come from the Potter's 5 forces, the pistol framework, then the internal issues will help you to complete. So answering that question, you're going to be using what? SWOT analysis. And that's what I'm talking about. Linking the question to the key areas of the syllabus so you know the models, the framework, the concept that you have to talk about. Give me a sec. My shot was a little blur. Number 3, structure your answer logically to address all parts of the questions. Some questions will be in 2 folds. So you must make sure that you structure your answer to address everything, so you get the full marks that you are supposed to get. Then certainly use a professional writing style suitable for a business context. Some people write anyhow without understanding the context within which they are. I've had students who will do assignment and send the assignment, and then you are seeing shorthands in the assignments. Then they are like, oh, I won't do that in the exam hall. Because I say this all the time, and this is the reality of life. Your brain doesn't know you are writing an exam. Your brain doesn't know you are listening to this or watching this video at this moment. Your brain doesn't know what is happening. You must take conscious control of what is going on. So if you are not careful, you are in the exam hall, but your brain, as you are writing, your brain may be working as though you are writing your normal notes in your notebook. So if you are not careful, instead of writing there, then you are writing E with the hyphen on top. Instead of writing that, then you are writing, I don't know how they do that one, something like this, or they have a way of writing that. Please don't commit these errors because you are wrong. There is no word in English like that. So these are the things that I want you to understand when it comes to the examination. Certainly, you make sure you get your emotional, mental, and psychological state well before that examination, so that if you can follow this guiding principle, I can guarantee you can go into the exam or write the exam with confidence and pass the examination. So that is the examination strategy for case study. So let's come back to the second phase of my discussion. And that is going back to EWL. So if you remember in the first session, we spoke about the syllabus and we were able to address the strategic analysis part of the syllabus. We then came to the strategic choice aspect of the syllabus, discussing and using the various models that we need to understand. So now we are going to be getting ourselves into the strategy into action aspect of the syllabus, financial objectives, and then the last one, certainly, governance issues. So these are the remaining areas that we want to walk through. Again, looking or taking the pre-scene as a basis. So let me scroll down to my slide and let's go. We've spoken about change management and everything. All of those things were discussed. So let's come to the governance issues that we need to understand. Remember, as we said, as per the syllabus weighing, there is a 20% minimum question waiting for you on corporate governance, right? 20% minimum on corporate governance. Permit me to take you there again because of consistency. 20%. So we have a minimum of 20 marks question waiting for you on governance. What is the examiner going to be talking about? Again, it is not about your pre-scene, it's about the syllabus. So in that 20 marks governance, what are we looking at? The board structure. What are we looking at? Key legislation like the State Interest and Governance Authorities, the ICAg Act. What are we looking at? The role of audit. What are we looking at? Institutional investors. And then certainly some ethical issues, and then the various governance model and framework that we need to understand. So that is very important there. So let's come to EWL. Let's see if we can come up with some issues in terms of their governance. And, you know, we've seen it already. Now, corporate governance is something that is fundamental for the growth and effective risk mitigation for all businesses, especially if we are talking about a family-owned business like EWL. So what are the governance issues that we need to talk about? In the context of the pre-scene, there are a lot of governance issues. In other words, the examiner has a lot of options that he can ask you questions on. Okay? So we could be asked to talk about or discuss the nature of governance, corporate governance in EWL, corporate governance in EWL. If we are going to discuss the nature of corporate governance in EWL, what it's talking about is to talk about the problems there. Then you can make some recommendations on how to fix them. So the various governance flops, they are board issue. We'll get into some of this in a moment. So that's a styling of question where the examiner is coming for you directly from the case study. The nature of governance issues. So this is where you're going to be looking at symptoms of poor corporate governance as identified in the pre-scene. But then the examiner can also come with what we mentioned again in the session 1 as we were having the discussion, issues about the importance of non-executive directors on the board, why we need a non-executive directors, then why we need independent non-executive directors, the role of the chief executive officer, and then the board chairman. Because in this question, the role is not split. The owner, Mr. Texan, is managing the day-to-day affairs with the wife, and he is still the board chairman, and the wife is the co-chair. So there is no split between the role of the CEO and the role of the board chairman. Good corporate governance suggests that the CEO should be an executive director, the board chairman should be a non-executive director. Preferably, the board chairman should be an independent non-executive director. So that is another issue that the examiner could get goosebumps on. Number 3, committees of the board. The role of various committees on the board, we didn't see anything about that in our question. So various committees of the board. We have the Audit Committee, very important. Remuneration Committee. They determine the salaries of the top dogs. And as per the Corporate Governance Code, when we are determining remuneration to be paid to directors, the remuneration should be competitive, it should be performance-oriented, and then it should also have stock options. Then we have Nomination Committee. The Nomination Committee is the subcommittee of the board responsible for selecting, going through, and bringing out candidates for the board, key board placement. And they are also there to design training requirements and things for the board members. That's there. Then Risk Management Committee. Okay, RC, Risk Management Committee. Very important. In some organizations, the Audit Committee and the Risk Management Committee may be together. In certain organizations, Risk Management Committee and the Audit Committee may be together. But it's part of corporate governance, that's 20 marks area that we need to know about. So, nature of corporate governance issues in EWL. The role of non-executive directors and why we need independent non-executive directors. The roles of Chief Executive Officer, Board Chairman, why it shouldn't be in the hands of one person. Committees of the board, we must know about that. Not only that, we could go ahead with some issues about the board structure issue. What are the key things that we will see to say that, oh, this is a balanced board? Because to enhance good corporate governance, the entity must have a balanced board. Please remember, I keep on telling you, don't just look at your discussion based on the pre-scene. Because in the additional information, maybe now the company has changed its mind and they want to be listed on the stock exchange. If they want to be listed on the stock exchange, one key requirement will be to have a balanced board, an effective board, not the Acclaimed board that they have currently. So in that case, as a consultant and a governance expert, what should be an effective board? What are the key features of an effective board? It's in your syllabus, and you must know about it. Now, certainly there has to be some level of diversity on the board, right? Diversity is key. Now, when we talk about diversity, we are talking about diversity in terms of experience and expertise, okay? Very important. So we don't want to have a board where, the guy, Mr. Texan, is a banker and an IT expert, so everybody on the board will be having finance and IT background. No. We should have somebody with legal expert. We should have somebody that has understanding in respect of supply chain. We should have somebody who has an understanding on issues in respect of labor relations. We should have somebody who has expert on sustainability issues, as it is crucial to our business. So that's what we are talking about here, experience. There has to be diversity on the board. Diversity also could come into the issue about gender, not ginger, Nhyira, gender representation on the board, right? So the board should be seen to have, some women and some men at the end of the day. It shouldn't be just male-dominated or female-dominated. Like, we should have some, social factors, because that's part of the agenda there. So diversity, the board has to be diverse, very important. Then the board must have independent non-executive directors. So number one, there must be non-executive directors. Then about 1/3 of the non-executive directors should be independent non-executive directors. Why? Because you want to have people, someone or some people on the board who don't have any significant interest in the company. Now, when we say an independent non-executive director, it doesn't mean this person cannot own shares in the company. But the person could be a shareholder, but the person's ownership of share is inconsequential. But preferably, we need somebody who has no ties with the board chairman, with the CEO, has no financial interest in the company. The reason is that then this person is coming in with their expert knowledge, expert understanding, and will guide the company properly. So some diversity, non-executive directors, independent non-executive directors. Then if it's possible, there has to be the separation of the roles of the CEO, as we mentioned earlier, and then the board chair. Now, does it mean that if the role is handled by one person, the company is not run well? No. There are listed companies that the CEO and the board chairman is the same thing, and the company is run well because there are committees of the board who are effectively working. But best practice suggests that the role should be what? Separated, so that most importantly, the board chairman will be a non-executive director, and to a large extent, independent non-executive director. Why? Because the whole idea about governance is that we have the shareholders on top, okay? Then we have the board, then we have the management team. And so the shareholders are the one who are going to be picking the board of directors, and the board of directors are there to design the strategic direction of the company, where we are going as a company. They are there to play their oversight responsibility on the management team. And so that is why the board chairman has to be a non-executive director. He doesn't come to work every day, and for that matter must be independent non-executive director. So the board is headed by the board chairman and non-executive director. The management team also headed by the chief executive officer, and they are going to be involved in the implementation of the strategic plan that the board has agreed on. And so usually for every organization, most organizations, if you check their board, it is just the CEO who is a member of the board. Some other companies, you see the CEO and the CFO are the members of the board. They are the only executive directors of the board. All of the others are non-executive directors, because the board must be able to have the balance, skills, expertise, and everything to be able to play their oversight responsibility over the day-to-day running of the organization. So if the people who are setting the strategic direction and the people who are supposed to play the oversight are the same people who are implementing the strategic direction, who are the same people who are implementing the policies, then where is the oversight? That is why the separation of the role is very important. Okay, that is why. Then the last thing that probably I will highlight on will be the management, the corporate governance models, or if you want, okay, the corporate governance codes. So we have the UK code, we have the OECD, we have Ghana's corporate governance code, okay? We have the Commonwealth governance code. We must know all of those things. Even in the governance code, we have the rule-based code and then the principle-based code. All of these are under governance, that 20 marks area. And certainly in governance, we can tie in risk management, we can tie in corporate social responsibility. So that 20 marks that will be in the exam on corporate governance. These are the options available to the examiner. So again, it is not about what you can see in the pre-scene. It's about what you must know about in the syllabus. Because the examiner can bring a question about governance that has nothing to do with the case study, but it's in your syllabus. So coverage of the syllabus is more important than analysis of your case study. So if I come back to our question here, what are the governance issues and the risks associated with those governance issues? Number one, the board composition. We've mentioned this, right? It is dominated by family members, Mr. and Mrs. Texan, 2 relatives, and 1 family friend. So you could see that there is lack of independent non-executive directors on the board. That is a recipe for disaster. Recipe for disaster. So that's one governance issue there. Why is that? The governance risk. Lack of independent oversight, objective scrutiny, and accountability. So potential for conflict of interest and weak strategic decision making. That is the consequences of the poor board composition. So in that case, as a consultant, what would you recommend? There must be an overhaul of the board. Overhaul of the board means that maybe since Mr. Texan and Mrs. Texan are in the woods of managing the company, they can still be board members, but then we'll bring in a board chairman who is independent. Okay, to some extent. Then we'll bring in some non-executive directors, again, with expertise in various fields. So that is the first issue that we need to understand. Second, leadership duality, which we spoke about earlier. That Mr. Texan serves as both the managing director and then the board chairman. And this is too much power in the hands of one person. Again, as we said, this does not mean that, every company we see, if they have the board chairman and the CEO as one person, it is a recipe for disaster. No, as I keep on telling you, it works. But best practice says that is too much power in the hands of a single person. Let's split it up. So, succession risk. The owners hope their children will succeed them, but there is no formal succession plan, creating significant uncertainty for the company's future leadership. Because it was primarily stated that they are running this company because they want to give it to their children later. But there is no formal succession plan. And I gave you the example of the issue in respect of the fact that many family businesses, after the parents die or are no longer interested in the business, that business is going to collapse or be sold. Why? Because of poor succession planning. But that's the second governance issue in respect of this particular question. So we could have questions on succession planning, which is part of the governance issue that the examiner could access. Next, informal governance. We are told that Mr. Texans believe that formal governance is financially burdensome and can dilute accountability. So, yes, having an official board, non-executive directors meeting regularly at least 4 times a year, every quarter, that is the minimum, it's a cost. So we agree with Mr. Texan that, it's a cost. But the benefits that come with having a formal board there outweighs the cost if it is executed properly. Are you getting it? The benefits outweigh the cost if it is executed properly. So, key person risk. Extreme dependency on Mr. Texan for IT and supplier relation and on a single Italian engineer for critical machinery maintenance. Yes, Mr. Texan, and again, that is one of the features of family businesses. Because the founder thinks that he's the boss, and he knows everything. There should be a procurement officer who is dealing with suppliers. There should be a customer relation officer who is dealing with customer issues. There should be a head of IT that is handling IT issue, so that Mr. Texan can sit on top to then give strategic direction and monitor how everything is supposed to be done. That is the thing. But the problem of a lot of family businesses is because the owners ignore formal roles, and they want to be involved in the day-to-day because they are afraid of two things. If they give people power, the people will learn about all the aspects of the business, and then they will steal the idea and go and start a business to come and compete with them. Then the second ideology that people have is because, when you give employees that permission, they will stab you at the back, meaning that they will inflate things, they will be stealing without your knowledge. All those things could be valid points. But listen, if you want to build a company that EWS, Mr. Texan, they are seeking to build, you want to open into Nigeria, you want to open into other regions or other countries in Africa, you can't be the one dealing with suppliers. You can't be the one dealing with maintenance of machinery. No, you got to sit at the top for strategic direction of the company. So this company needs a formal governance structure in place, which will require that the board does what they must do. We have the requisite people on the board. They meet regularly. They have committees of the board to be able to handle their job very well. Next, lack of oversight, as we mentioned earlier. Board meetings are infrequent, fewer than the 4 required by the board charter. And there has been no formal performance review of board members. Can you imagine? It was stated in the case that there was no formal review since they put the board together, but you don't do that. The kind of company that they want to build, which is the strategic direction of the organization, there must be board review. And board members are reviewed. Sometimes it is a 2-year terms. After that, you come again, we assess you, and then we vote whether we should continue to have you or we should replace you. We cannot have just one grandmother be on the board for 17 years. What kind of company are we running? So that is a governance weakness in our company. But it's also a great corporate issue that as consultants, we must address for the company or for the examination as a whole. There is an operational risk there. Why? Because fraud potential in the manual system, high labor turnover, an unreliable online platform, risks associated with, an aging delivery truck fleet. All these are risk issues that the entity is operating or having to understand in that regard. Then the last governance issue that I can talk about is the family-centric management. Okay? Yeah, it's a family business, so you expect that family people will be on a key role. But the question is, do they have the expertise to do that? Because if you look at Louis Vuitton, Moet and Hennessy, LVMH, okay, Louis Vuitton, Moet and Hennessy, the man has put his children heading all of the key businesses. Okay, heading all of the key businesses. But the children are not just because their father is a billionaire and so they are heir apparent to the throne. No. These people are educated, trained, and they went through the rope from the bottom up. One of the problems about family business especially is that the father would think that, the children should be the next of kin. So the child will go to school without no corporate experience. They will plug the child and put the child in a key management position. That is a recipe for disaster. Why? Because that person has no practical corporate knowledge. But great family businesses, the way they do that is that the children will come in, but not at top level management. The children will come in right from the bottom. They're going to start as messengers, assistants. Then they will be rising. They will be posted to various segments of the business. Then they will be rising. So by the time they get to managerial level and to the board level, they had spent about 10 years understanding every aspect of the business. With formal education and that experience, they can better run the organization. That is a problem about family businesses, because people are just giving position. And we saw that even in Ghana here. Some companies. I've forgotten one bank like that, one of the banks that collapsed, one was run like that, where the child was just plugged in, put into a managerial role, but lacks understanding of how a company of that size should be managed. But the mere fact that the child has gone to school, give the child a position, and they run the company to the ground at the end of the day. That is the issue there about family businesses. If the transition is not done well, positions are not given well, and people are just giving position because of family, then the business is going to be run to the ground. There will be no future. And so that is another governance issue that we must understand. It is not bad, but if you are putting relatives in key positions, what are we doing? What are we doing? That is a problem there. So those are the governance issues that we need to understand, with, their corresponding risk issues that we must be mindful of. So the nature of governance in this company, the board composition, leadership duality, informal governance, lack of oversight, then the family-centric management. Then the risk issues, governance risk, succession risk, key persons risk, and certainly operational risks. And the last one is strategic risks. That is, concentrated, family-centric decision-making could lead to insularity and a failure to adapt to market changes or external perspective effectively. Because it's their family. They will say, oh, media, yo, media. So even though a wind is blowing in the market, they are still doing media. By the time they know it, they are out of business. And that is a key thing, because you don't have any outsider telling you something. There are times that they say that, there's a saying in Chi that says, "Diochasa nimse nechiachia," right? The one that is, chartering a path, literally, doesn't know that they are back, or the path that they are charting is crooked, or it's not straight. And so the reason why that delusion could come in is because you are surrounded by family members who may not have an understanding of how a business is run. Yeah, they may have gone to business school, because, in our part of the world, 98% of the business schools and the business graduates in this country have zero knowledge about how business are supposed to work. And it's because of the way our business schools have designed educational systems here. So even we can have the family members who are educated, they have MBA, whatever the heck, but they lack practical knowledge. Why? Because our universities in Ghana here are taught, on the average, about 98% of the professors have no practical business knowledge. They've never managed any business. They've never mentored any entrepreneur. All they have done in their entire life is reading books. And so they are teaching things that have no practical relevance. And so that is why the top business schools around the world, they bring in non-PhD, non-MSc, non-MBA, but successful billionaires, millionaires, entrepreneurs to teach in their business schools. And that is something that I think here in Ghana we have to also deal with. Because, we had a minister in the past that says, if you don't have a PhD, you shouldn't be allowed to teach in the university. And I'm like, really? You think successful businesses are run because people have PhD? No. There are people running successful businesses who have no knowledge, who have not sat in a class to learn under anybody or any MBA, but they know about leadership, they know about governance, they know about legal issues, they know about team building, they know about product development, they understand marketing. So those people can bring in some practical skills to the MBA student, business student, so that when they graduate, they will have valuable skills in their brain. That's just by the way. So just saying that the family could still say, yo, we have trained these people, but there must be some practical knowledge that ties everything together. These are some of the governance and risk issues that we need to understand when it comes to EWL. And by extension, the various understanding that we need to have when it comes to that 20 marks area governance that we need to be mindful of. So I don't know, as you are going into the exam hall, where the examiner wants to come from. He may want to context on EWL, and then in that case, we'll talk about the governance issues in EWL. Or he may want to go to the other issues that are in corporate governance that you must know about. So, in as much as you are doing the analysis, do not forget the scope of the syllabus when it comes to this 20 marks area, so that you won't go to the exam hall and be surprised. Okay? And be surprised. Then, let's look at some financial perspective issues. Remember we said financial objectives, 20% coming in the exam hall that we need to understand. So, based on the syllabus, we've discussed the various things that we need to know about in terms of financial strategies and objectives. But in respect of EWL also, what are some financial issues that we need to understand? Because yes, we need some contextualization, then we can expand our boundaries a little bit to the scope of the syllabus. So number one is the cost structure and profitability pressures. As we have read and emphasized already, that the primary drivers of cost include the high import duties, the currency depreciation, financing cost, high electricity tariff, rising maintenance expenses for aging delivery fleet, intense marketing, and all of those things increases the cost of the entity. So on those things, what can the company do? We'll come back to them. 2, capital structure and gearing. We were told that the company is financed through a combination of equity and debt. Okay? So, we can say that their debt is considerably low and they may have substantial equity. We are not giving the breakdown in the pre-scene. Maybe in the additional information, we may have opportunity to look at the financial position if the examiner so wish to look at it. But then, its significant investment in advanced machinery makes them, highly geared operationally. Now, when we say a company is highly geared operationally, what does it mean? High operational gearing has to do with the structure of your operational cost. So, if majority of your operational cost is fixed, then we say that the company is highly geared operationally. Do you get the idea? So this means that it has elevated, fixed operating cost, which can be disadvantaged compared to competitors with leaner, lower cost operational base. That is what we must understand there in respect of that. So, although yes, they have a lot of capital assets, but those capital assets also go into a lot of cost. So their operational costs, a lot of them are fixed, which means they will incur them irrespective of the number of outputs they are selling or producing, which means that they are at a disadvantage as compared to other companies that may have a lower cost-based operation. So there could be a question where we must advise and strategize how they can change that operational gearing issue. How can we make it so that the variable cost will be more than the fixed cost and we will still be competitive in the market? That is something we need to be thinking about. Next, working capital management issues. We've been told that the company's working capital, we can say it's effectively. Why? Because in the pre-scene, we were told that the strategy was granting generous credit, but it led to significant bad debt. But one thing we have known about this company and Mr. Texan is that they are not fixated on certain things. They change. So if you remember in the session 1, we spoke about their Potter's generic strategy, the strategy they adopt to gain sustainable competitive advantage. They started with La Creme de la Creme, focused differentiation. But as they proceed, they realize that if we want to do La Creme de la Creme, we will be out of business. So let's bring in some low-cost issues. And so they then adopted a hybrid strategy for themselves. The same thing to their working capital. When they started, they were giving people flexible credit, but that resulted into significant bad debt. But then in response, management implemented a stringent cash and carry policy for all but its top 10 customers. So that is issues about credit policy. So when it comes to working capital management, there are a number of things that you must understand there when it comes to working capital management. Because per the context of this question, they have some issues in respect of inventories. So how do we manage inventory? There are trade receivables and credit policy. How do we deal with them? So for instance, maybe in the additional information, the top 10 customers that they are giving credit to, let's say, are not also paying well. Or maybe 5 of them are defaulting a lot. So what should a company do? Management of trade receivables. You did that in financial management. They can do invoice discounting or debt factoring. If they are doing debt factoring, what factors must they consider? So the workings you did in financial management when it comes to trade receivable management, very important. But most importantly is to then redesign their credit policy in determining the credit worthiness of even the top 10 before knowing the amounts they can sell to them on credit. So all of those things are relevant issues that we need to understand when it comes to working capital management. And then certainly the cash. Trade payables is there. At least they have negotiated to be able to get themselves from 60 days to 120 days. So they will use that money to turn themselves around. But again, we don't know. Maybe in the additional information, something can happen. So how do we manage trade payables? In trade payable, maybe a supplier says they are offering you an early settlement discount. Should you take the early settlement discount or don't take it so that you can use that money to fund your business? Because remember, when you take the early settlement discount and pay the supplier on time, then you may have to go to the bank and borrow money, bank overdraft or short-term loans to finance your operations. So you have to pay interest on that loan. So we must look at the effect that we will have overall before proceeding to make the decision as to whether to jump on the early settlement offer that the suppliers are giving, although they have given us 120 days, or we should not. So management of trade payables, an equally important issue. We can smell it in the pre-scene. It is also in your syllabus as part of the financial perspective issues, so you must know about it. Then, we are told that the entity has substantially improved their liquidity and cash flow management, which is a good thing. So maybe they have an effective working capital management in place. You know, when it comes to working capital management, we have the conservative approach and we have the aggressive approach. The conservative approach here, you are allowing customers to pay, flexible time to pay at some time in the future. But the aggressive approach, this one, you are on customers, they have to pay you as quickly as possible. So that is the idea about the approaches. Then we come to financing of working capital. Financing of working capital. As I told you in the session 1, it depends, but we will have a fixed working capital and then fluctuating working capital. So for instance, a company can say that for us to operate successfully, we need a working capital of say, 100,000 as an organization. Then the entity will go down and say, on the average, at all time, our net working capital should be around 80,000, so that there will be 20,000 that may come as and when seasons happen. So this 80,000 is called the fixed working capital. The 20,000 based on seasonal changes is the fluctuating working capital. Okay? The deal on financing working capital is that the fixed working capital will be financed using long-term sources of finance. So we use long-term finance. That could be equity or debt. Then the fluctuating working capital, you're going to be using short-term finance because that is going to be seasonal. So you finance that using short-term sources of finance. So that is also another issue that we must understand when it comes to the working capital management area there. Then financial data management. A key strength lies in the company's financial data management. Yes, the IT guy has built, Mr. Texan, has built the Excel to see real-time sales, customer, product costs, and all of those things. And access to that information, as they have said, is a game changer. It's good. But we have not seen the back end yet. So again, we don't know. If the examiner wants you to, calculate ratios, interpret ratios, he can do it. So in the additional information that will come in the exam hall, the examiner could bring a question to us in respect of ratios analysis, okay, to analyze the performance of the company. And that is crucial, and we must know about that very well in that particular case. So those are the things that we can, smell from the question. But again, as I told you earlier, when we're talking about the overview of the syllabus, there are various decisions that the entity is seeking to make, like opening the factory in Kumasi, like opening factory in Nigeria, like replacing their vehicles, their delivery vans with electronic vehicles. All those are investment decisions, and they require financing as well. So the examiner can come and give us information in the additional information, so we do investment appraisal to evaluate whether the factory is worth it in Kumasi or the vehicles, they are worth it. So how do we calculate that? So NPV, IRR, ARR, payback period, discounted payback period, we could have that. It's in your syllabus. You must know about it. Right? Then the financing, as I said, where do they get the money from? Should they borrow? What is the advantages and disadvantages of that? Equity finance. Okay, how should they do equity? They could bring a venture capital firm. That's an institutional investor. What will be the advantage and disadvantage? They could be listed on the stock exchange. What are the conditions that must be met to be listed on the stock exchange? All of those things are issues that we must understand in that 20 marks area. Then certainly the risks that we spoke about, they are exposed to foreign currency risk. So the hedging, which is significant because primarily they import everything. So how do they manage that? And I emphasize that over the last few examination dates, the examiner has just been hitting on foreign currency risk management. money market hedge, forward contract. So the entity is exposed to that risk. So the way we do those calculations in financial management, you have to make sure that you understand that very well at the end of the day. Then certainly the issue in respect of interest rate risk, because these projects, if they have to finance them and interest rate is currently at 34%, how do they handle that? So all those issues are under that 20 marks probability area that the examiner can bring that we need to understand. So that is also about the financial perspective. So we've seen the governance area 20, the financial perspective also 20 marks potentially based on what is in the syllabus. Then we spoke about the concept of the product portfolio already, so I'm not going to be talking about this any longer. But yes, the entity has a number of products in its portfolio. The engineered wood, they do stones and quartz, the accessories and fitting, the appliances, and then the services that they are offering, the value-added services, installation, and those things that they are offering. So this is their product portfolio. So if you remember, we spoke about the fact that we must know about the BCG metrics, but it will be based on the context of the question. We must know about the McKinsey and General Electric business screen. We must know about the Shell directional policy matrix, because these are in the private sector product portfolio analysis. So the BCG is there, which is problem child, cash cow, dog. So of these, although the entity is rendering all of these, which ones are really making money? Which one is really causing the company to lose money? Which one should he focus on going into the future? Because we may have the additional information where the company is now like, okay, enough of a lot of the things. They want to find out and undertake a portfolio analysis to find out which one they should continue to offer. Because yes, you can be selling appliances, but what if you're not making any money on the appliance? So it means that could be a problem child. Okay, because there is potential for appliances, but do you have the expertise, the capacity to be able to get that market share? So the appliances could be a problem child area in that regard. We don't know, but it could be a problem child area. So all would depend on the examiner also feeding us with some information to help us to know whether we're going to use BCG metrics or use the McKinsey and the General Electric business screen, or use the Shell directional policy matrix to do the product portfolio analysis. But these are the things the company is doing. It's likely we have to then analyze which one it should go for, which one is really making them money, the cash cow, which one is not making them money, and so maybe they would have to redraw or maybe double down on to be able to increase their profitability at the end of the day. So the portfolio management issues, we must understand that very well. Now, embedded in the concept of the portfolio is also the branches that they are getting themselves into. So they want to establish a factory outside, right, in Nigeria. They want to have a factory in Kumasi. Okay, then corporate parenting style must come in, as we spoke about as well. So because that is under portfolio. So the corporate parenting styles, we must know about them. Strategic planning, strategic control. We must know about the corporate parenting style as per Gould and Campbell. They gave the corporate parenting style that we must know about. Then the final thing is the variables that must help when it comes to making acquisition or merger decision. That is the Ashridge portfolio display, where we look at feel, okay? We look at feel, like, what we have in common at the end of the day to determine whether we should continue or not. So what am I trying to say? What I'm saying is that all of these things are in your syllabus, under that portfolio area when it comes to that strategic alternative choices area, as we spoke about when we're going through the syllabus. And we can smell, because the company is not doing just one thing. We can smell because this company is seeking to have strategic business units. So in the spirit of that, the examiner could ask us some questions. It is in your syllabus, so you must know them before going into the exam hall. That is something you must understand in respect of that. So that's what we must know about. Next one is ethics. Remember I told you that there are some ethical issues here that we need to be mindful of. And I said in strategic case study, ethical issues, we are not just looking at the individuals, but we are also expanding the ethical issues to bring in, how do we call it? The corporate level issues. So for instance, if a company may have a license, okay? A company may have a license to go mine in a forest reserve. Okay? Yes, there is a law. You are given license to mine in a forest reserve. But if you have a company that has good conscience or conscientized people on the board will let you understand that, yes, although we have the license, government has given us the license to go and mine and destroy the forest reserves, we should do that responsibly. What does that mean? It means that if we are going to be cutting any trees, we want to plant new ones. It means that if we are going to be using water, then we must make sure that waste and things do not come to destroy the water bodies. That is the ethical side of governance. So yes, you have been given license to go into the forest reserve to destroy the forest in the name of getting your gold or other precious minerals. But ethics will tell you that as you are getting the gold, you are destroying natural habitats. As you are getting the gold, you are destroying the ecosystem, contributing further to climate change issues and challenges. So how do we execute this license in an ethical manner so that we will still mine, make money for the shareholders, but preserve the forest by not destroying it? That is what you must understand when we talk about ethical issues and governance. So in strategic case study, ethics is not just about the professional accountant alone. It should be somebody who is honest and straightforward, integrity. It should be somebody who should not allow bias, conflict of interest, and undue influence to impair their professional judgment, objectivity. The professional accountant should have the requisite skills, expertise required for the job and should do the job in the manner that is expected to be done. Professional competence and due care. The professional accountants cannot disclose information that they come across as they are doing their work, except with permission with a client entity or under certain circumstances, like they being a key witness in a court case, or if the matter is of a public interest, after seeking legal advice, they can disclose it, or maybe the entity is engaged in some illegal activities, then they can disclose it. Confidentiality. Then the last thing is the accountant must carry out his work in a manner that doesn't bring shame or disrepute to the profession. That is professional behavior. So in case study, ethical issues is, yes, the accountant must behave well. But we go beyond that to look at the company. Whatever policy the company is executing, whatever strategy that the company is executing, there must be ethics beyond it. And ethics simply means doing things in a manner that is morally acceptable by the community. Because if you are given license to go mine in the forest reserve, you are making money to for the shareholders. But what is the consequences of your action? You are destroying water bodies. You are destroying the forest reserve. You are contributing to global warming. You are destroying future generations' life. That is not moral. That is an evil-minded person who is just bent on making money as to the shareholders, but forgetting the other implications. So in strategic case study, that is what ethics is about. On the personal level and on the corporate level, we must do everything in the right manner. This includes the way we employ people. This includes the way we buy goods and services. So that's what I want you to understand when we talk about ethics in the public sector. In strategic case study. Ethics in strategic case study. Very important. But management across the world also face some ethical issues that we need to be mindful of. So, for instance, something that is acceptable in one community, in one country, may be seen as illegal in another community. For instance, if you go to the many of the Asian countries, India, Singapore, part of Malaysia, China, Japan, when you are going to visit a top person, anyone, you go there with a gift. It's part of the culture. You go there with a gift, right? So it's part of the culture. But if you are going to visit somebody in Ghana here, maybe the president or a minister, and you go and give the minister a gift, it will be targeted as, oh, it's bribe, it's bribe. Why? Because of cultural differences. And this is one of the ethical issues that management face who want to, deal with their issues. So for instance, our company, EWL, they are going to be facing the same ethical issues. There are things that may be acceptable here in Ghana, but if you go to Nigeria, they may flaunt on it, may not be acceptable because of culture differences. So in your marketing campaign, ethics must be taken into consideration. You don't just put any ad out like that. You must consider the society you are in, the people. Is this ethical? Is it acceptable? So what am I trying to say? Ethics is central to the strategic direction of the company and the successful execution of the business strategies of the company in whichever country that the company is operating within. That's what we must understand. So that's why you cannot say, yo, this thing works in Ghana. In Ghana, this is how we do our things. Then you go to Nigeria and go and try the same thing. You won't succeed. Ethics says you must know what is acceptable in each of the areas. Yes, there are certain ethical schools that will apply in either market. Murder is murder, irrespective of where it is. It's murder, right? Only that somebody can also classify it as self-defense. And that is the exceptional nuances that you must understand. So ethics is central here. You may have a 10 marks question about ethical issues in the exam hall. But those are the things that I want you to understand. Then another issue apart from gift that management face is issues about bribe and grease money. What is the difference between the two? Bribe is payment to get access for something that the entity does not qualify for. So bribe is virtually illegal. You are getting access to something that you don't qualify for. So maybe we want a license from, please, this is an example, okay? We are bringing in a product out, a health product out, maybe a food, a drink. Then we are supposed to go to the Ghana Standard Authority, the Food and Drug Authority. So we send the things there, and for some reason it didn't meet the requirement. But we need a license because we've already invested and we don't have time to change it. We will change this later as we go. The entity may pay bribe so that the people in charge of seeking to it that the right thing comes out turn a blind eye. So they will give us the license, certify our product, we start selling. Why did we do that? Because we've already made the investment. But ethics tells you that a company should not do that. It is illegal, but beyond the illegality, your conscience. Why would you want to sell something that you will not eat? Why will you want to give people something that you will not consume? So beyond the illegality, morality should tell you that this is not good. But that is bribe. Then we have grease money. Grease money is payment to, smooth out the administrative hierarchies. Here, we qualify. Everything is right, but some people are impeding us. So if a company pays grease money, is it illegal? Like you've done everything. Everything is JJ. They should just give you the license for a go away. Today at this, tomorrow at that. So if a company pays money so that they can avoid those administrative will and get the things done as quickly as possible, is that unethical or it is ethical? Is it unethical? Because if we don't pay that money, the head of the institution or whoever is in charge is not giving us green light. So do we say that, we are an ethical company, we are a moral company, we won't give money to anybody and run the company to the grounds? No. We will pay the grease money. We will pay so that we can get the things done and then go away. And that is an ethical issue. Because sometimes, especially if we get ourselves involved in public entities issues, then there's a problem there. Because an officer somewhere, especially in our part of the world, can tell you, hey, if you're not going to pay X amount of money, nobody will mind you. But immediately you present a brown envelope, my goodness, you are treated as a VIP. Something that is supposed to take maybe 6 months, they can give it to you in 1 hour. Why? Because of grease money. The question is, if an entity pays grease money, is it ethical? Do you get the idea? But that is business, because if you don't pay it, your competitor will come and pay and take you out of business. So that's why they said business is war. Right? Because you don't pay, your competitor will come and pay and take you out of business. By the time you realize you file for bankruptcy and your family, you are living on the street. That is the idea. So every business pays this, okay? I mean, grease money, everyone does it. Every business. They won't tell you, but every business does it. All right? And that is also sometimes feed even into political donations. Okay? Political donations. So many organizations across the world, I mean, they would donate to the political parties to support them. Yeah, it's part of grease money. They will support a certain candidate to go into Congress or to go into Parliament. It's part. So that if there are laws or things we want, you people can help us fix it quickly. Is that wrong ethically or is right? That question, you have to answer it. But it's the rule of the game. If you stand there and say, ameze me an angel, ameze me a nyamineba, ameze me nye dear, ameze nyamina eshe ameze. Yeah, when you stand there as you are doing the ameze, you are out of business. Because your competitors will trample on you and go away with it. Those are the ethical issues that management face. We call them ethical dilemma in corporate issues. So let me come back. Enough of the stories in the general sense. EWL. Now, the reason I went outside like that was because I keep on telling you, it's about the syllabus, not the pre-scene. So you must know the ethical issues in the strategic case study syllabus. Because not all of them may be seen in the pre-scene. But the examiner can bring an ethical thing, then you will say, wait, if I was syllabus name or in the pre-scene. And that's why I'm emphasizing on the syllabus workflow. So let's look at the ethical issues here. One is the industry-wide ethical challenge. What would we see? The Ghanaian timber sector is fraught with severe ethical problems, including the widespread of illegal logging, deforestation from galamsey, corruption and smuggling, These activities have devastating social and environmental consequences. How does our company deal with them? EWL mitigates its direct involvement in these domestic issues by pursuing a strategy of sourcing its engineered wood from international suppliers certified by global sustainability standards. Now, so if you come and say, EWL, you are selling this thing, you are selling wood, you are selling wawa, you are selling these things. They are from the Galamsey. You people are contributing to environmental issue. EWL will say, hey, we don't buy from Ghanaians. All our things are imported. So don't blame us for them, because we buy our things from international global organizations who are certified with sustainability standards. So in other words, EWL is not contributing to that industry-wide ethical challenge. I hope you are getting the idea here. Because one of the things that you hear recently is the gold board. And there are some people who are saying that the gold board, the reason why this administration is not dealing with Galamsey well and not declaring a state of emergency is because the gold board buy significant portion of its gold from the illegal miners. Do you get the idea? So the gold board came out, the CEO came out, and they said, no, we buy our gold from licensed, gold, buyers or suppliers. So yes, it's possible, because we've told the licensed people not to buy gold also from illegal people. So Gold Board is telling you that we don't buy gold from illegal people. We buy gold from people who are certified to engage in the buying and selling of gold. That is the issue about ethics. So in our case here, EWL can say, no, Galamsey, people are logging trees illegally. We don't buy from them, so we are not contributing to that. That's a good action there. 2, let's look at their internal issues. So the internal ethical consideration at the organization. Despite its responsible sourcing, EWL faces several ethical questions relating to its internal practices. What are some of these things? 1, labor practice. If you remember, we are told that their workers work for long hours, up to 18 hours a day. Me neighbor. Everybody works 8 hours, but their employees are working up to 13 hours a day. The question is, are they paid extra? Are they given overtime premium? What are the benefits for this extra hours of working? Because relatively, there is a low pay raises and employee welfare. Yeah, although the entity is providing accommodation and those things, the reason they are providing the accommodation is not because of the welfare of the employees. They are providing accommodation just to make sure that the employees work more hours. And that's an ethical issue. It's an ethical issue. So not offering formal employment contracts to new factory workers under the guise of sustainability can be viewed as exploitive and contrary to fair labor standards. How, as a reasonable company, you employ somebody without a formal contract? They don't know their salary. It's when you are giving them the appointment, they say, hey, we pay 300 Ghana cedis every month. You don't do that. And the reason Mr. Texan says the reason they don't do this is because sustainability. They don't have time to waste paper. And no, bro. That's absolute, garbage. People must be employed. So that's an ethical challenge there. So the company could be flamboyant. Oh, we source our material from standard people. How are you treating your employees? That's an ethical issue. 2, the potential for internal fraud. Internal fraud. How did we know that? Employees' resistance to the online because of manual processes enable unacceptable self-servicing transaction with the artisans. So the employees don't want to, put things into the system. They want to bypass. So they could even look at a system, something is 200 cedis, they can do lobby with the artisans and sell it below that price, buy it and come and replace it because nothing is going through the system. That's an ethical issue which has to be resolved. It's not resolved yet. That one is pending. The labor issue too is not resolved. That one is pending. But these are all issues that must be resolved. 3, nepotism and the governance issue. Appointing the MD sister and the chief operating officer's the brother to key management positions creates, potential conflict of interest issue. And it undermines the merits of board culture and can damage morale among non-family employees. That's an issue there. It's an ethical issue. Now, again, on one side, somebody will say, oh, but it is their company. So if they can determine who they want to appoint. It is true. But what if somebody also has been working in the company for a long time? And they were thinking that, that position, when it becomes vacant, they will be occupying that position. That's why they are working. They keep on working for the company. To all intents and purposes, the sister of the MD has been appointed. To all intents and purposes, the CEO's brother has been appointed. How would they feel? That's nepotism. So it affects the morale of employees if these things are working out. So on ethical background, the only thing that we can celebrate this company for is the fact that they import their things from international suppliers who are certified by global sustainability standards. So you can't blame them for galamsey. We can't blame them for illegal logging of trees. We can't blame them for those things. But in the company, there are a lot of unethical issues going on in HR, in internal controls, in governance. And all these are separate questions that the examiner can ask us in the exam hall. So human resource management issues, make sure you read that. If you have forgotten issues about human resource management, read them, because there could be some issues about human resource management coming in the exam hall. It is in your syllabus. You are supposed to know about it. Okay? Procedure for appointing employees, induction of employees, resolving of employee dispute, determination of, pay for employees' welfare, and all those things. These are all issues in HR, human resource management, that we need to be mindful of. Then we come to the international issues, that is Porter's Diamond in that regard. Now, as I mentioned, the issue about Porter's Diamond can be applicable in different environments. So as I said, the Nigeria strategy that they want to undertake, we could use Porter's Diamond to assess the environment in Nigeria. Okay? So any strategic decision that they want to take, international strategies, we could use Porter's Diamond. Alternatively, Porter's Diamond can also come in where we are comparing EWL in Ghana with another company in the same industry in another country. Why one is better off than the other. So we must understand the context of the Porter's Diamond and how relevant it is. So as I said, if we are asked what factors they should consider before any international strategy that they want to undertake, we can write our answers from the perspective of the Porter's Diamond, because all of those things are relevant issues. Alternatively, it could be a dedicated standalone question that the examiner could access that we need to know about. And that is also an important area there. So what I did here is to just give us a glimpse of what a Porter's Diamond will look like, say, for Ghana, right? And then how it links to the industry in question. So let's look at the Porter's diamond. Now, according to Michael Porter, the reason why nations enjoy that competitive advantage is because of, or can be attributed to, 4 key factors. In other words, when you pick a company within an industry in one country as compared to another company in the same industry but in another country, one is having an international global recognition, and one country enjoy that global recognition than other countries. So for instance, when it comes to investment banking, we can talk about the UK, all right? When we talk about IT, information technology, we can talk about the US leading, with China also closely leading in that regard. When we talk about pharmaceutical issues, we can talk about countries like Cuba, although it's declining because of tariff issues with the US. We can talk about Cuba and some other countries who are enjoying that global competitive advantage. When we talk about automobile, you can talk about United States of America leading that global chain, although China is also coming in tops with some of its locally manufactured vehicles. So that's the concept of Porter's diamond. The question we are trying to answer is, how do nations get that global competitive advantage over others in respect of specific industries? That is the concept of the Porter's diamond. So according to Michael Porter, 4 factors. So as I said, we're focusing on Ghana, looking at the industry of EWL, okay? So Ghana's favorable factor conditions present, a weak profile for advanced manufacturing. While the country possesses raw timber species, this endowment has been severely depleted by the illegal logging. Critically, Ghana lacks advanced manufacturing technology required for products like the MDF, and there is a shortage of skilled local engineers capable of maintaining sophisticated machinery, forcing reliance on costly foreign experts. So when it comes to the factor conditions here, for our industry, there are quality timber available. But the illegal logging is destroying that. Number 2, our manufacturing sector is not developed a lot. So the manufacturing technology required for the products, not available. Number 3 is the skills. People who will be required to repair some of these machinery. We have University of Science and Technology. How many people from there have the expertise to deal with some of these issues? So all those things put Ghana at a disadvantage when it comes to the industry within which EWL is. Yes, the raw thing they need, the wood, is available, but then the technology and then the expertise, there's a problem there. And really, when it comes to those artificial factor conditions or created factor conditions, government is responsible to make them available. And that is why, for instance, under this current administration, some of the things that they are doing will be great. Like, the 24-hour economy policy, the road infrastructure that they are doing, declaring areas in Gomoa as industrial hub and those things. Like, it's going to, stimulate the country a little bit, build up our technology capability for various industries from manufacturing and other areas. Then that will mean that people will be skilled. So our education system has to also be looked at. As I was saying earlier, the nature of our education system presents us with people who are having the certificates but with no practical knowledge. So there are people who are studying electrical engineering and various things. They finish and they don't know what is earth wire. They can't fix basic issues. There are people who are doing mechanical engineering, but they can't fix anything after graduation. So these are roles of government. It's a question the examiner can ask you. The role that government must make to ensure that, or the role of government in ensuring that this industry is competitive because of the potential that it has. And that means our education system must be changed, and that is critical. And that is what I was telling you earlier, that we live in a country where our business schools, The 98% of the professors there have never run any business in their entire life. They've never mentored any entrepreneurs. So they only speak theory without practical knowledge. And so there has to be a change in our MBA programs, in our MSc program, in our PhD program, and even the first degree program, where we bring people who are not professors, who don't have MBAs, but have built sustainable businesses with practical knowledge to come so that we can close the gap between 1973, 1909 theories and what is happening now in the corporate world. And that will require government action to change the way these things are done. Because if we are just like, oh yeah, for somebody to teach in the university, the person must have a PhD. You think somebody running a business, having a private jet is interested in a PhD? No. Or the other, it doesn't mean PhD is not valuable, but he's not interested. But that person has a wealth of skills that can train these MBA students, MSc students, the first degree students, and give them that practical skills required to bridge the gap between the theories they are reading and then what happens in the corporate world. So that is government's role. And governments can also create early demand for the things, because that is also there in that particular case. So those are the things we must understand when we talk about the factor conditions. Next one, demand conditions. Demand conditions looks at the nature of demand in the local market in Ghana. Now, if the demand condition in Ghana is sophisticated, it will push the company to be the best of itself, and then it will also be competitive on the global market. So what is the nature of demand condition in Ghana? That is important there. There is a strong and growing, demand because of the housing deficit here in Ghana, in that particular case, that we need to know about. Furthermore, Ghanaian consumers have become more sophisticated because they prefer high-quality imported products because of the dissatisfaction they are having. So, to some extent, we can say, yeah, people are becoming, a bit sophisticated. But purchasing power is a problem. So, on the sophistication of the demand for the industry that EWL is in, there are people who are demanding high-quality things, but there are some people who are also price-sensitive because they don't have money. So it's not the best of the best, but it's in the middle. Next one is related and supporting industries. Related and supporting industries are the other industries that must be there to make the industry under discussion possible. So for instance, the ecosystem of related and supporting industry is underdeveloped here in Ghana. The local wood processing sector lacks advanced capabilities, and the distribution network is also fragmented. The financial institutions that are there to give us funding that we need to expand and grow, they are also charging interest rate of 34%. That means this stifles capital-intensive projects. So the financial institutions that will give the funding, the wood processing sector that will bring in technology and give us quality wood, they are underdeveloped. And it then brings in a limitation, because remember, if we have the system design so that EWL doesn't have to import, then they won't pay import duties, their cost profile will be lower, then they can provide quality products at lower prices, and people can buy more, and we can develop the sector and grow. If the financial institutions weren't charging those exorbitant, irrational interest rates, then they could easily get access to funding. Because remember, in other countries, people are borrowing money at 5% interest rates. How do you compete with a company borrowing at 5% interest rate when you are borrowing at 34% interest rate? How do you compete? You can't compete. So they will outshine you because they can get the money, acquire the assets, there are expertise available, and dominates the global market, and here you are, you need some amount of loan from the bank. The bank is charging 34% and above, and also asking for collateral facilities that you may not have. So the related and supporting industries for the business that EWL is in, especially the wood processing sector and the finance sector, we will say they are underdeveloped. Then the last one is the firm strategy, structure, and rivalry. Yes, to some extent, there is a high domestic competitiveness. So because of that high domestic competitiveness, EWL is, going to be pushed, and all competitors are going to be equally pushed to be able to expand and grow their operations at the end of the day. These are the things that we must understand when we talk about the Porter's Diamond. And so on the flip side, the factory that this entity wants to go and open in Nigeria, we have to find out what is the nature of timber availability in Nigeria. They have to find out, does Nigeria have local skilled engineers to maintain those machinery? Or they will open the factory in Nigeria, and when machines break down, they have to fly an engineer from outside the country to come to Nigeria to come and fix them? So EWL must consider that factor. Number two, what is the nature of demand in Nigeria? What are people requesting, demanding for? What is the size of the demand? What is the purchase power? Because, want without the ability to pay for it, that is purchasing power, is just a mere desire. So you learned in economics the difference between want and demand. That want is desiring for something, demand is you have the purchasing power to buy it. Then three, related and supporting industry. How is the wood processing sector in Nigeria? Is it developed or not? What is the financial issues or banking insurance issues in Nigeria? The factory that we're going to be established, which is an independent subsidiary, can they easily get funding in Nigeria at a lower interest rate? They must consider that. Then certainly the nature of competitiveness in the industry within which EWL is operating. So you see that in answering the question, what factors the entity must consider before ultimately going into Nigeria, you can draw inspiration from the Porter's Diamond and use that as a guinea pig to provide the answer to the question. And that is what you must understand. Knowing which part of the syllabus, which model, which framework can be applied in solving a specific question. That is the idea about the Porter's Diamond. Then, a couple of other issues that I mentioned about earlier, because I'm bringing my discussion to an end at the end of the day. A couple of other issues that I spoke about earlier will be the issue in respect of the fact that, as I said, the entity is having strategic plans. My short is black. Give me a sec. Okay. So as I spoke about earlier, the entity is undertaking some strategic planning. And so we must know about preparation of business plan, all right? The format of a business plan, having the content, an executive summary. Then you look at the environmental analysis issues. So you're going to do SWOT analysis, the PESTO framework, the industry analysis, Porter's 5 forces is going to be coming into town. If there are any financial plans we have to bring, because a business plan should also have the financial projections. So preparation of the cash flow forecast. Maybe if in the additional information the examiner presents us that, then we can address it in that particular case. So on the overall, these are the things that we must understand generically when we talk about the strategic case study examination. Again, the examiner doesn't care about your analysis of the syllabus. So it is good. Maybe by now you have a 100-page analysis that you are reading, or you have a 40-page analysis of the pre-scene that you are reading. It's fine. You can read it. But you will not pass the examination only because of that 100-page or 200-page or 40-page analysis. You will pass the examination because you understand the scope of the syllabus, and then you know how to read a question, understand the question, how to answer the question, and how to work with speed and accuracy. These are the things that will determine whether you pass the exam or fail the exam at the end of the day. And these are the things that you must understand when we talk about strategic case study. So I'm going to be wrapping up around here today. And certainly, if there are any other issues, you can reach out and then you will be assisted in respect of any other issues that you may be having. And then those are the things that we must understand when we talk about strategic case study. We will be also releasing and posting some few nugget-related areas specifically to the case study and the syllabus as well on all our social media platforms, okay, on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on TikTok as well. So make sure you stay connected on all the platforms so that those tips, tricks, and other additional issues that will be released, you'll be able to get access to them so you can put yourself in the position and pass the examination. So wishing you all the best as you go into the exam hall, and make sure you follow the guidelines that I've given you. Prepare your answer booklet, answer plan. Start with what you can do best first. Make sure you read and understand the context of the question well. Move with speed and accuracy. Review your work. Get ready to stop work. You drop your pen, review your work. And if you can do that, then and only then can you go into the exam hall and pass the examination. So wishing you all the best, and I'll see you in the next one.